the internet has kind of like changed the ways that we think, and how, you know, I've had professors that have given us, the students, a hard time about, you know, using Google or using Google Images, and I was thinking about that and how just also like with Instagram, how you have these filters of like old-timey filters, and it's this instant thing that we're sharing with who knows how many people, but it's like meant to be nostalgic. And then I also liked this quote by Susan Sontag on the bottom. It says, "Today everything exists to end in a photo." And I feel like I've felt that with making three-dimensional work. I was recently interviewed in a magazine called Ampersand in Athens for my Bobbies, which I'll show later, and she was asking me what my favorite thing was about being an artist and what my least favorite thing was about being an artist. And my least favorite thing is just taking photographs of my work. But anyway, so this is just image of like what I was trying to construct. So I had a table that was 4 feet long, 4 feet tall, and then about like 2 feet wide. And I wanted to put my own sort of artifacts on this table, and I wanted to make it somewhat personal. So I drew a picture of like a memory of my dad's desk in Atlanta. He always listens to Jim Lair. And then I like the roaches. There are sometimes roaches in the basement. So I wanted to like capture the clutteriness of like everyday life, but then also end with a product that was like very scientific, and looking at these as artifacts. So I included the rubber gloves and the towel and the paper towels as ways like for the viewer to like want to almost touch the piece. And then the potted plant at the bottom, I took out the pot, but that was just a dialogue between like this natural world versus like artificial world. This is a detail of the artifacts. I covered these objects in plaster gauze. So the next piece I'm going to talk about is a shrine installation that I made called Catharsis. And I was given a prompt for this one to create a visualization of the word catharsis by using a steel box. And so I think what I've been learning as I was even making this PowerPoint is just the way that I work is I like really want to know like the etymology of words. So I went back and like studied what catharsis really meant and where the word came from, and Aristotle defined it as a purifying or figurative cleansing of the emotions, but then Socrates would use it as a like medical term. So again, I used medical imagery in this piece, and was kind of blurring the lines between like a living room that you would be familiar with versus this like medical, you don't really know what's going on. And I was also studying like the Middle Ages at the time and how they used to purge the 4 humors. They believed that you had 4 humors in your body and they had to be in balance. So they would purge the humors as a way to like become healthy, but it was actually like not a good thing to do at all. I just found that interesting. and that's also a self-portrait of me that on the yellow background made out of wood. So it became a personal, like once I did the research behind what the word catharsis meant, it became a personal piece of how I dealt with my own emotions. So I wanted to create like a quiet space that I could go to. This is another piece that I did called Space Wolf. It's 50 cast wolves out of wax. I used like a rubber wolf to make the casting. And they're hollow on the inside. About like a couple of inches. And I put price tags around them. This was really just like a fun, playful study for me. I like the word to use, like eye candy. I'm not particularly trying to say anything, but with this piece, but then some of the things I was thinking about was like, just like, why is the wolf all of a sudden like a hipster thing? Or why is it that people are drawn to these bright colors? The color choice was like very intentional in this piece. And I found that I work a lot on the wall, so I think in a way I am trying to create an image for someone, or like almost a painting. And this is a piece that I called You're a Star, but it's Katie Lipscomb, actually. This is for you. This is my ode to you, because these trophies are all from her. Tyler and her gave me a trash bag full of old trophies. So Katie's very achieved, but I took them all apart and took off the plaques and kind of like reassembled them in this way. And I like how this kind of reads as a painting almost. There's a composition, but then at the same time allowing the viewer to walk up to the piece and read each individual image, or each individual little sculpture, baby sculpture. So these are my bobbies. These were recently in a fashion show at the High Museum that I got first place, which was really exciting. Originally when I was making these, I think I just wanted to make something playful and fun. On the first day of school, I really wanted to just make something in my studio, and so I just threw things on the floor and was like, okay, I'll make a party hat for the first day of school. Like, it's gonna be a good year. And it was just like a silly tall hat, and I put it on Instagram and people liked it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make more of these. So I had them in a show hanging on the wall, and people saw these photos and liked them at the High, so they asked me to show them at the High Museum. And it was for a fashion show called Imagining New Worlds, which was based off of the artist's work, Wilfredo Lamb. It was a retrospective of his work. And then they had two contemporary artists, one of which is Jose Parla, and his work is in the background there. So I based my hats off of Jose Parla's work, because really I just like the color. I'm very drawn to bright imagery. So the one on the left is made out of yarn, and then I have an artificial moss, and then that like pom-pom fringe stuff. And these are connected to bicycle helmets. So I have like constructed the skeleton underneath, and then I just kind of like go for it and just like cover them basically in any way that I can like do. So the one on the right is pine straw that I spray painted like with a metallic gold. It was actually kind of funny taking these pictures because we were getting pine straw everywhere in the gallery. These are more more images. I recently was interviewed in Ampersand, like I said, so you can go check out that article. That was exciting too. But with these, I think originally I am very interested in fashion trends, and like Alexander McQueen talks about how his fashion is like about escapism, and I find that really interesting, and how these kind of allude to like another world. And in a lot of my sketches, I'm creating like these other worlds. So this is kind of like a high fashion, imaginary world-like thing to me. I was looking through my sketchbook, and I have like tons of these sketches, but I forgot that I was originally, when I first had this thought, I looked up the word to cover, and I wrote down all of the definitions. So to wrap up, to clothe, to invest oneself into something, to spread over a surface, to hide, to deal with. So I think there's a lot more to these hats than just being hats to me. And I think I'm still trying to figure out what that is. But as of right now, I just like the way they look. And this is another hat that I made that it was just made out of, that's fake. It's just made out of old, like, I think that's cut up t-shirt and tin foil and popsicle sticks. And I was looking at Andy Warhol's work at the time, and so I thought it would be funny to buy a bunch of raisins. I don't really like raisins, but I ate all of them over a few months, and I had all of these Sun-made lady raisin boxes on the piece. This is one that I call Mummy Suit, and this is a piece that I never finished, but I think is what kind of like inspired me making hats. I had 2 of these that could roll around, and you could get inside of them and close them, and I still want to, this isn't finished because I would like to like explore this idea again, but just again, like to cover oneself, like to hide. They're like little pods of safety, but it's almost claustrophobic. And I just thought it would be funny when I originally made these to like dress people up in these and just like walk through the streets in downtown Athens. This is another bodysuit that I made out of old material again. At the time, this is when I was first like making larger work, and I think I was just trying to find ways to get my hands on material that was free, and so I was kind of just exploring, like these to me are just like texture studies. And this is what came out of those bigger bodysuits. The bodysuits like weren't really working just the way that I was fabricating them. And so I knitted this piece. It made my arms so tired, but it's about 6 feet tall. And it's been in a few shows as like a performative piece. And I love this piece because I love ancient Egyptian history, and I was looking at hieroglyphics and the way that, like the colors that they used. And so again, the color, I dyed the roving, which is the material I used. I hand dyed it specifically to match those colors of old like archives. So I studied in Cortona, Italy for a while, and I think I grew a lot there. And I didn't have a ton of material to get my hands on, and so I resorted to sketching a lot, and I was drawing everywhere I went. So this was at a restaurant, these guys in a band, or this was a grandma that she was lost in the middle of the square, and I was just watching her. This was just something from my imagination, again, from the square. And this was a bad day that I had. But I show these just because I think for me, the sketching in this way like changed the way that I kind of think. I normally like to write down everything that I'm thinking, but these were like daily journals for me of what I was thinking, and they were very honest and a little humorous, and I ended up making bigger drawing pieces off of these. But as well as sketching, I had to find a material to construct something with, so I got my hands on 2 trash bags full of pine cones. And now like my peers joke that like I just want to put a pine cone on it because I'm just obsessed. I think they're like the most beautiful things. But my professor was telling me that I was just thinking too hard. So this was like my project was to go out. I had this one spot in Italy, and I'd go there every day and just take pictures of pine cones. So I just sat there and drew pictures of pine cones. I built pine cone towers. I stuck them in the wall. I had like a whole wheelbarrow full of them and poured water on top of them. I was doing stuff like this. And again, I think that this like has changed the way that I build things. I made this piece that was like closer towards the square, so more people were able to see this. And I would go and put flowers on it as the flowers died. So I would incorporate different colors. And there you can see the form. So it was about like 8 feet tall, and I used like wire infrastructure, and then was able to connect them that way. And as I was working with pine cones so much, I started trying to like read into the meanings of pine cones, and I was doing my research about pine cones. You could say that I became obsessed. And I found these things called capulema, which are cone cows. So I took, like I had to babysit the professor's kids sometimes, and so we just made like these whole worlds, and they became like these installations. And I casted 250 plaster pine cones and installed them in Italy, and unfortunately I never got a picture of it, but it was, I think I just learned how to be playful. I think that's something with creativity, sometimes I can stifle myself. And then this is a piece I'm working on currently about, it's a 5 foot tall steel pine cone that I haven't quite finished yet. And then I just wanted to turn to, I saw this in Italy, and because I'm running out of time, I'm just gonna flip through the images. I made several pieces and a whole like jewelry line off of the story of Apollo and Daphne. And I was researching off of Google Images. So this is an installation called Susanna and Daphne Together, and that's Daphne in a pot. This is a wax tool. this piece was also in the High Museum. It's called Daphne on Wheels. And I casted this piece thinking that I was going to make some sort of brooch, but I, again, was in my studio, and I was frustrated that I didn't feel like I hadn't felt like I had been making anything, and so I just threw together materials that I already had from past projects and created this, and it's a little humorous and whimsical. And this is what I've been working on in the past year. I've been building trophies, and I think I'm just kind of interested with the questions of like how we value trophies, what they mean to us when we're younger. This is a trophy that I made for my sister because she got a speeding ticket. This is on the plaque, you can't read it, but it says like second best. So they're a little humorous on like how we value ourselves and like as children. I just remember being on the swim team and always getting the participation award because I always got disqualified because I couldn't swim right. So I think the bright colors